We're in Las Vegas, Nevada, the end of July 2011 with Dominick Tursi. Dominick, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born and raised, and some background in your family and upbringing?
Well, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, I guess because somebody had to be. And my parents, Olga and Leo, brought me up. My dad was originally born in Italy, but came over as a young child. My dad delivered coal and ice, walking up 3- and 4-story buildings, carrying ice on his shoulders when he was for most of his career. And I love my dad. We lost him about 5 years ago. My mom, God bless her, is still alive. In fact, most of my family had settled right here in Las Vegas about 20 years ago. We lost my dad, as I say, about 5 years ago. He's a gentle human being, just a good man. And what he said to me when I was growing up was, I don't want to hear that you're carrying ice on your back, so get an education. And it was just kind of a good basic thing that never left me. I have a brother and a sister. I'm the oldest of 3. We're all about 4 years apart. My sister had lived in Las Vegas until quite recently and now lives in Texas. My brother still lives in Las Vegas. The other interesting, to me at least, things that I can tell you about myself are, I have 4 sons. My sister has 2 daughters. My brother has 2 sons. There's some kind of pattern there, and I'm not too sure what that is. Now, I have, of my sons, my oldest son has children. He has 2 sons. And then 4 years ago, we had a girl. So I've got 3 grandchildren, one of whom is a princess.
Of course.
I still live in New York. I live on Long Island. Just terrific to be here in Las Vegas for this convention.
And you went to high school in Brooklyn?
Yes, actually, I went to mostly parochial schools through high school. St. John's Prep was the school that I attended in high school. And then I went to public college in New York City. And it was, I guess, during my second year of college that there was something uncomfortable going on, and looking back with the gray hair that I now have, I kind of attribute it to the fact that I had mostly a not truly cloistered young education, but as I say, it was mostly parochial, and now I was out in the bigger world, and there were all these concepts which were foreign to me, religious and social and so forth, and I struggled an awful lot dealing with these concepts. Everyone should have an opinion, and are they right? Am I wrong? And so forth. And all of this gave me pause to question even what I was doing in college. My parents attended, had a dinner one night that they had attended and came back that same night and said, I know you're not really sure what you want to do about your career, but had dinner tonight with a person who's a court reporter. I said, what is a court reporter? And they tried to give me an idea. They really weren't too sure at all, but their words resounded. He writes what people say so that other people know what was said. And that sentence, perhaps I'll tell you a little bit more why that sentence was so meaningful to me in my career. Anyway, with that, I said, I'd like to find out a little bit more about this. Found out about a reporting school in Brooklyn, New York. I went down and interviewed with them and began studying court reporting.
Do you recall any memorable classmates? Anything that stands out on your reporting school life?
Yes, and I wish that I could recall his name. It was a time when reporting schools, at least this particular one, and I think it was pretty much generic in the New York City area, would enroll students whenever they wanted to start. So as a theory student, there would be a large room with multiple students at a variety of levels. The instructor would walk from table to table, level to level, and spend a few minutes with each and say, here is your academic principle. I want you to work on it, understand it. We would spend 5 or 10 minutes with each of us and then practice it and would come back. Now, as it turned out, I started the same day with another fellow. This fellow had been a typing champion in the Army, so his fingers just flew. And he and I were pretty much contemporaries, and we were pretty much on the same level of achievement with reporting. That is to say, we both were progressing at about the same pace, and we got bored quickly. It took about a half hour to 45 minutes for the instructor to get back to our level. So we didn't know what to do. In the beginning, we walked outside, and we started finding out more about the school or about the area and great places to eat. But then we came back, and each of us, as I say, was kind of mature, and we knew that we were there for an education, career-oriented, and so we decided we tried to use our time. We didn't know what we were doing. We simply took each page and competed with each other to see who could write it the faster. And had no clue, but by the time we finished theory, the goal of which was simply knowledge, not speed, we really were moving into speed. I would say that we were probably at 60 words a minute, where the average student was at about 40 if they were tested at all for speed. So it worked out very well for us, and that to me was quite memorable.
I take it after reporting school, you became gainfully employed in the reporting profession somehow?
Well, I became employed. Gainfully, I never understood the meaning of that or if that ever applied to me as a young reporter. I did look for work. It was difficult finding a job. Actually, I was in school for about 7 months and achieved whatever their academic goals were, which were a little bit less than today's goals. And I went out, and somebody was looking for reporters to work, and I found out later that he was really not quite an honorable person, but he offered me a job, and I took the job. I did some depositions. But I was really kind of floundering. I didn't know what a deposition was. I didn't know that there was supposed to be a Q for a question and an A for an answer. But I did the best that I could. I came back, and the man went over it. He was a voice, a steno mask operator. In those days, there were these enclosed microphones in what they called a mask, and it was used by the military, as I came to find out later. So that's what I did. And after about 3 or 4 months of that, I found that I was losing skill. Because I wasn't working often enough, and I wasn't being, in my opinion today, guided well enough, so I went back to night school in order to re-achieve the speed that I had left school with. There, the instructor was impressed with my abilities and offered me a job working for him. He was the chief reporter for what was called the Department of Investigation in New York City, where they investigated other city departments. And that was really the best beginning job that I had as a reporter.
Then what? Where?
Well, I was very fortunate. As I say, I went through reporting school in about 7 or 8 months. My first job, if you would call it that, only lasted a few months. And after a couple of months of school, and I found this job working for the Department of Investigation, I stayed there for about 7 months. At that point, I could not get anything more out of the job, and so I looked for something else. I wound up working for the circuit courts in the state of Connecticut for about 4 months. And once again, I achieved everything that I could. There was nothing more that I could learn there. I was away from schools, and so I had some tapes. They had these things called magnetic tapes. They were large reels on this large, gigantic machine, a box, kind of a box. And so I practiced from that as much as I could. And ultimately, someone told me that there was a job opened in a lower court in Long Island, New York. I applied for that. It was a provisional appointment. That is to say, civil service test was not being given at that time, but it would be, any employment would be subject to. So I applied for it. They gave me the job, and then was when I really buckled down and learned what court reporting was all about. It was a job which lasted about 7 or 8 years for me. And that was truly my proving ground, my learning ground as a reporter.